You are now listening to the Here for the Truth podcast, hosted by Joel Rafidi and Yerasimos Stilianessis. All right, everybody, welcome to episode 19 of Here for the Truth. We have an amazing special guest today, which we'll tell you about in a second. But first, shout out to our latest top tier patron, Conspiracy Gangster, Amanda Haddad. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your support, and we appreciate you. Yerasimos, do you want to introduce who we have here today?
Yeah, we have an awesome guest, Sheela Mahdavi. Did I pronounce your last name right?
Did.
Yeah, Sheela and I actually recently met. We met a few weeks ago at this Health Freedom for Humanity California chapter meetup, and we were sitting next to each other on a bench, and we just got into a really amazing conversation and connected and stayed in touch. And it's just awesome to have her on here today. And I just want to tell a little bit about Sheela. Sheela's a nutritionist, a detoxification specialist, herbalist, and founder of Food Over Drugs, a company that stands to educate and shift society back into the use of whole foods and plants as medicine. Sheela has assisted numerous clients from around the world to heal from various chronic conditions through the use of food and herbal medicine. She has hosted workshops and lectures since 2013, educating her community about the power of food and how it can be used to heal the body. I love that. Now with about 500,000 followers on TikTok. Dang. Her education now reaches a worldwide audience. Her philosophy and brand name, Food Over Drugs, stands as the core of all her work, products, and education. Welcome to Here for the Truth, Sheela.
Thank you so much. Thank you, both of you. I'm listening to this bio and I'm like, wow, that's a really long bio.
Oh, no, don't worry. I think we've had like even longer ones.
We've had longer bios. We've had longer bios for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm super happy to be here. It's funny that, you were talking about us a meeting a couple weeks ago, because our conversation was just going and going to the point where you were like, hold that thought, I'll be right back. And then you were like, we should do a podcast. I'm like, yes, I would love to. Conversation.
I'm a Gemini. You're Libra in Western astrology. So we got that air sign going. So we're just bouncing back and forth and like having awesome conversation. So it's really cool to have you here.
Yeah, well, you're both swords either way. So yeah, it's all air, intellect, exchange, communication.
I love it.
Yeah.
So I guess, let's start off with this first question. Why are you here for the truth?
The truth has been kind of emerging since 2012 for me. So when I was let's go back. When I was about 15 or 16, I was diagnosed pre-diabetic. And, I'm sure you guys relate to this too. Like there was a time where many of us, not all of us, but many of us were, reliant on a medical doctor or anyone else to kind of tell us like what our diagnosis is, what we have to do, what we have to take and things like that. And so I was prescribed a medication, and this little thought, like this little voice inside my head was telling me like, I don't think you should take it. I was like, I don't think we need this. Do we really need these horse pills right now? And so I just decided to just tweak my diet in hopes that like, if I change my diet, maybe we'll get a different result. I had no education on this, I was just kind of like, I just winged it. And in 6 months, I came back for a blood test and the doctor was like, oh, wow, the medication's working really well for you. And it was in that moment that I realized, wait, so he doesn't have all the answers, or there was another way to go about this, or wow, we don't have to take medication. That was when like the seed was planted. So I didn't go full activist at the time. I was just kind of like, it just lingered in my mind. Like I knew there was like a possibility, but I think it was really in like 2012 when I started to do the research on Monsanto at the time, the old former name, Monsanto, and the bees were dying and all the chemicals that were allowed in our food system here in the United States and how we owned the patents to so many things, and they were like, you know, banned in other countries, and just the whole deep, dark net of why the food system and the drug system is the way that it is in the United States. And so I went like full-fledged activist and was out there.
Full-fledged activist and conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, right. At the time, I was like, yo, did you know that, you know, the former lawyer of Monsanto, you know, works for, you know, I was all up in, you know, sharing this information, but it was really about like educating people about, you know, things that I was super passionate about, like the bees are dying, people are getting sick. Did you know that aspartame is linked to, you know, leukemia, you know, all these different things. Like they've found that GMOs can, cause tumors in rats. You know, I was like, I wanted to teach people these things because I realized that I was not taught that. I was not taught that foods can even transform your body in the first place. Nobody told me. So I wanted to teach. And at the time, it was really all about like chemicals and things like that. I wasn't into like, I hadn't studied nutritional science yet. I was just, you know, scavenging information, doing what we're here doing now. You know what I mean? But that was where it began. And then from there was, you know, I went on to study nutritional science, and because I really wanted to find like the ultimate diet of the human, which like is a never ending thing, because there's really no such thing. But I was super committed to that. And as I was there, I was learning about, you know, herbal medicine. And I realized when I was at school, like how little these issues with the food system were talked about, you know, the chemicals in foods, and how, to me, like certain things are not considered food, you know, that we see on the streets. And so, of course, I continued my outspokenness and all that stuff in school. And then when I started to learn how herbs can be used as medicine, that's when it clicked. That's when I was like, wait, we have an answer now.
Mm-hmm. Food over drugs.
Food over drugs. Exactly.
No, but for real, when was Food Over Drugs born? Like, when did you sit down and go, this is my brand, this is who I am, this is what's going to lead me to 500,000 TikTok followers? Well, first of all, I have this, I used to have like I started to use it now, but I had this personal Instagram page, and then I was randomly just blocked out of it. Like they just said, I couldn't log in. It was like wrong password, but then I would ask them to send me the password. They wouldn't send it to me. And I'm just like, yo, so I had to create a new account. And it was like, I took like a couple year hiatus, and I was like, you know, I just get away with like, you know, whatever, who cares? I'll get back to that account one day. And then I just got to this point. It was like, I think it was 2017. I was just like, dude, I need an account. Like, I want to create an account, but I didn't have Food Over Drugs, like the product line, like all that stuff. I was sitting there and I was thinking of like, you know, what do I want my Instagram name to be? And it was like, and in a separate conversation that same day, I was having this passionate conversation with my friend about like my vision of the world. And I'm like, dude, and I said all these things like, I believe in X, Y, and Z. I believe in blah, 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 blah. I believe in, and I'm like, food over drugs. And then he looked at me and he's like, that's the name. And I'm like, that's the name. So we made my Instagram name Food Over Drugs. And so that was just, it's supposed to be just my Instagram. But it's amazing that no one had it. That handle wasn't taken.
I know.
I mean, it's original, but also you would be like, I guess in my world, I'm like, oh, it's common sense, like Food Over Drugs, like fucking, why would I take drugs instead
of was waiting for Sheela, bro. It was waiting for Sheela.
It was the right timing.
Yeah. No, I agree. I was kind of shocked that it wasn't taken, but like, I think now I see so many things like plants over pills and like all these other things. I'm like, oh, okay.
You started it.
You're the OG.
You're trend center. You're there, but yeah, the OG.
500K.
Almost not there yet.
Oh, I love it.
Sheela, tell me, what is your what is your primary gnosis? What is your main overall philosophy when you see someone, when you speak to them? What, in the most simplest terms possible, do you get your message across that this is how beneficial and how potent this information is for you?
So that's a great question, because I would say I would want to answer in two separate ways.
Go for it.
The first way is that first, I don't think everybody understands like what I mean by food over drugs. I think some people are like, yeah, burgers over cocaine. Like they'll just make jokes about like what they think this means. And
it's kind of true too. I'd rather have burgers than cocaine.
Right. Like they'll just throw things out. But to me, I'm like, there's certain things that I've learned over the years, or I've come to my own conclusions that certain things don't belong in the human body. Certain things are not food. And, like I was talking to a friend yesterday about, fast food companies and, just take like Kraft American slices as an example. Some people really do believe that this is considered food. And that's an issue that we have, because it's actually not food. It doesn't serve the body. It doesn't serve it. It deteriorates the body in more ways than it serves it. So if that's the fact, and it's not revitalizing, if it's not nourishing, if it's not enhancing, and this goes for other things, not just what's on your plate, but if it's not these things, then it's not food.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to educate people about like, how can we first distinguish what belongs in the body and what does not belong in the body? That's like, that to me, if more people or the world entirely is able to decipher like what belongs, what doesn't belong, then that's the beginning of their individual healing journeys, where they're now in power of themselves. They're now their own guides. They're now their own doctors. And that's the second thing. Like, I want to see people take control of themselves. I want to see people find that connection, see how food impacts their own body, experiment themselves, feel it themselves, and use that to propel them through their own, their own healing of whatever that may mean for them. That's how we survive. That's how we live. That's how we thrive. That's how we change our DNA and end the diseases and the weaknesses that we're now passing on to generations. We could literally decide in one generation that we're done with passing on these organ weaknesses and causing these diseases in future generations. We don't have to do it. But because there is such a lack of information and experimentation and self-empowerment, I guess I'll say, we start to see what's happening, as generations progress. We start to see these rare diseases come up, and we're like, left and right, like kids having cancer, things like that. Some of these things were like unheard of 40 years ago. So I want to see the world live. That's really what it is. I want to see people live.
Yeah. Well, what you're talking about sounds a lot like self-responsibility to me. Not everyone believes in self-responsibility, but that's okay. But that's the thing, right? Because once you make decisions for yourself, and then you make that decision and you experience a shift, and you're like, oh, that feels good now after I've made that decision. There's a shift. Now it's like, knowing that information, am I going to continue to make decisions that make me feel that positive difference within myself? And then step by step, you become empowered, right? And you can make choices that are aligned uniquely with you through becoming your own scientist in this process. And I mean, that can be applied to anything and everything. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the healing process that happens is, I'm in such a belief system that the body has this innate ability to heal, that it's always going towards homeostasis, and it's like always trying to heal. And so what can we do to support that process? And of course, like just your motto in general is just like, yeah, give me food, give me good herbs, like fuck these pharmaceutical drugs created in a laboratory, et cetera, et cetera. And just the idea of being empowered, everything that you were talking about, Sheela, and what Joel was saying is, what does that do? Like, how does that psyche evolution impact your health and impact your body and impact how you move through the world? And I just think it's, I don't know, I just think it's amazing. I love it. And that was my awakening too, is just like, well, in one regards with food, it was just like really realizing how when I was nourishing myself with different foods, it shifted the way I thought. It shifted my emotional life. I had a huge impact. It had a huge impact on me. Like, I went to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition in 2007. And I remember we were exploring with all different kinds of like eating, and different, people were coming and speaking. And I don't know, it was just really cool to just try out different things, and then to eat really cleanly and really healthily and see how it impacted me. So
literally, like you said, it literally moves the needle the moment that you feel it, the moment you experience it. And like, I'm so glad that you're saying this, because it's literally like, that's what it takes for a person to now know what is possible. Once you have experienced it, once you have felt it, once you have felt your own level of health, you can't forget that feeling. Maybe you can over time, but like, it's possible. You remember the time, that week, those couple days that you were on fire. Your sleep was excellent. Your skin was clear. You were super flexible, like your whole body was just, your memory was sharp. Your cognition was on point. Everything, your body was working at a new level. And when we actually experience that and we feel that, it's like, it's you, not that you can't go back, you can, but innately we don't want to. We are seeking that. We want that. We want to continue to experience that. So we will make those choices. We will start to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, maybe I'll try and let that go. Maybe I'll see what happens. I let it go for like a month. I felt really good. Let me just see what happens. That's the beginning. That's the beginning of how people start to change their bodies, and their bodies transform.
Yeah.
Down to emotional, all those things. Like
in that process, you discover your own power as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Which is why when you were like talking about like, it does take a responsibility. Absolutely. But it's like you take that responsibility. It's not like you're like, man.
No, it's not a burden.
It's not a burden. It's like, it's like, you're like, oh, wow, I can do this.
Why would I let anyone else choose for me? Why wouldn't I make the choices? I'm this body. I'm the person in this body. Why wouldn't I choose what's best for me? Why am I letting someone that doesn't have any idea about who I am, what I do, what I'm like, make decisions for what's best for me? That doesn't make sense. Like,
yeah. Unfortunately, we live in a system, the malignant culture, that people get programmed to absolve themselves of responsibility and look outside of themselves. That's why like inner work. This is an inner journey to start. Really looking inwards and being like, yo, what am I going to do? How am I going to live my life? How do these things serve me or not serve me? And I think something as simple as looking at what you're putting in your body and on your body. I say simple, but like just starting there. And how does that transform you? How does that transform your relationships, the way you interact with people? I remember there was a person who stood up during my class, and I think it was in 2007 at Institute for Integrative Nutrition. She's like, eating broccoli saved my marriage. It's like, it was hilarious to me, but again, what is held within that statement of eating broccoli? It may be not just the broccoli, but making the choice to go, hey, I'm going to have the broccoli over something else. I'm going to actually make this a conscious process and know, oh, I'm choosing this instead of that. And so all of that together, like, it's like this cumulative impact on how it shifts you and moves you forward. And I can totally get why someone's getting up and saying eating broccoli changed my life, changed my marriage. Like there's so much in that.
There's so much in that, because it's like, when you said like, what could happen if you decide to basically make that change or take that power back, essentially, it's like, literally it becomes this domino effect, like everything in our lives. But you really think about it, if a person was suffering with, let's just take acne. I'm going to take acne as an example. Like, for those that have like suffered with acne, they know that they walk around with shame. They walk around with this uncomfortable, like, I don't like the way that I look. I feel uncomfortable. I don't feel attractive. I don't think, and then that's going to cause them to act differently in society, which then makes them feel like, I can't talk to that person. I'm not going to say that thing about myself. I'm not going to like make myself seem great because I don't want them to point out my flaws. There's all these different things, and then their life ends up turning out the way that they do. So that's just on one end. But then what happens is when you start to heal yourself, when you start to actually change your body, and I'm just using acne as example because it's like very physical and very like literal. Like if you see it on people's faces when this changes, like when their skin heals, they get the confidence, and that confidence leads them to something else. And that something else leads them then to something else, and their lives start changing. And can you say, man, healing my skin brought me my husband, or healing my skin got me that $500 million deal? Like, it might sound crazy at the beginning, but like, no, it's everything is trickling effect.
Everything's connected to everything. Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, it makes total sense. Like your sense of self, the way you look at yourself, the way you look in the mirror, how you feel about yourself can completely shift. And what does that lead to? Like you said, I mean, it could be the difference between saying no to an invitation that could end up like if we were living two alternative lives. Like it was like that movie Sliding Doors. I think I watched it with Gwyneth Paltrow years ago, where it was like there was two lives happening because of one decision that she made. And so it's like, what would happen? Like having acne or not feeling good about yourself could cause you to say no to an experience that could open your life up into a whole new way. And I'm not saying if you have acne, that means like you're fucked and like you're not gonna have good shit happen to you. It's just, we're just using an example of like how a little thing can have an impact on your sense of self and who you are and the choices that you make.
Yeah, well, like Nathaniel said, everything touches everything.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, when people like now talk about like shifting timelines or whatever it is, I mean, to me, it's just embodying a new way of being by making empowered choices, right? When you change that one thing to heal internally, like a frequency can shift. And obviously that changes everything, and the way you experience everything and the way you receive everything as well. And that's exciting. And so once you experience that, then you're more so inclined to keep doing that and to keep growing. And that's what, to me, real growth and real enhancement is. It's knowing thyself, then making empowered decisions for yourself based on that information.
Yeah. Listen, I think about my wife, Sophie, we met 7 years ago. And like when we met, we were both on the same page. Like I had stopped drinking alcohol. I haven't had caffeine, all these other things. And so like, if we were not aligned in that way, would our life be what it is today? Do you know what I mean? Like, so these little things, like you make these choices to better yourself, to step more into your power, to further evolution. And yeah, I could maybe even say stopping drinking alcohol and having coffee and doing recreational drugs led me to my wife,
Right.
And to my life.
And then to me, bro, then to me.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know about that, but Sheela definitely.
Well, if you didn't make those choices and you went with Sophie, you wouldn't have been on Unslaved, and I wouldn't have seen it, and then we wouldn't have connected. Then we wouldn't be doing this. So, but
there could have been a small possibility I could have been on Enslaved without Sophie, but I don't think so. Sophie, I'm just giving you shit. No, it's true though, and this is what's so beautiful. This podcast was born, if we go backwards, however many years, out of a simple choice of all the little choices that we all made, to better ourselves, to live our life, to be healthier. And we're all here now having this conversation. How fucking cool is that? Like that shit is I love thinking about the connections and the choices and how one thing leads to the other. It's just like amazing.
Nah, bro, everything's random. Everything's a coincidence, bro. There's no such thing as a metaphysical. There's no such thing as synchronicities, bro. It's all just bullshit, man.
Yeah, I love it. Even the going to the health freedom thing where we met. I wasn't really going to go. Someone told us about it the last minute, because I think it's a new chapter from the main health freedom for humanity group. And then Sophie and I were like, oh, let's just take a drive. Let's leave Topanga and head over to the west side. And little did I know, I plopped on a seat. You were there next to me. I was like, oh, hey, how's it going? And here we are. I love it. It's the beauty of life. when you're open to it and saying yes. You know, if I was home, if I was like, I can't leave the house, there's an invisible thing that's going to fucking attach to into my sinuses and kill me. You know what I mean? Like we wouldn't have met.
So, like, interesting. If it like, you know, even just the frequency of fear, you know, what does that in the world with the self, with the body, on a physical level, and then, you know, trickling effect out in the world.
Yeah.
But and then trust on the other end, you know, trust, like love for the self, other people, keeping that mindset, bringing that with you. It's like carrying it. It creates, in my eyes, it's like all that we seek, all that we want, all that we, you know, are here to create. You know, the door is open. Look at us, like, you know, like you said, you're like, look at us, isn't this beautiful? It's like, we created this, you know, we each individually, our lives, we played out our lives, we made the choices to come exactly to this moment and have the exact network and community around us just as we do, you know?
Yeah. And you want to know one reason why that all happened? Because each one of us chose food over drugs. I'm just saying. I'm just, you know, let's keep it real.
That's true.
Well, ultimately, what we're saying is that this moment is the culmination of every single choice that we've made in our lives, right?
Yeah, that's true.
All right, let me ask you this, because this is a bit of a conversation in my household at the moment. So many different diets out there, right? There's so many different ways of eating, like veganism, vegetarian, pescatarian, carnivore, omnivore, whatever it is, eating for your blood type, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How would you describe or portray the individual diets? Like, is it truly unique to each person in terms of what they're more suited to, what they're more inclined towards? What's your perspective on all that?
So I used to have a very black and white view of what served the human body and what didn't. And it was very like I didn't allow for flexibility. And I think in the last maybe year or two, I've just been I guess not even just myself, but I've just been shown over and over that there's more ways to heal the body. There's more ways to live, you know, and I really do believe that certain bodies are built differently. And you look at, you know, the different climates of the world, and certain people with their own bodies maybe thrive with higher amounts of meat or protein in their diets versus others that very well can live on literally just fruits, you know, and nothing else. And so I definitely feel like there are particular diets that if you go, you know, one way, it can change the body. So for instance, like if when we're talking about detoxification and cleansing, when we talk about detoxification, at least in my book, there is one way of detoxification, not one way, but, you know, there's certain types of foods that cleanse the body and others that slow the process of detoxification. So if we're talking about detoxification, which a lot of my work revolves around, then right off the bat, I'm like, no meat, no dairy. I would say limit as much as you can or avoid starches and grains. Of course, processed foods, added sugars, alcohol, and caffeine in the time of cleansing. And so, but that's for cleansing. Now, I used to run around thinking like, well, then if it cleanses, then that's the ideal diet, you know, like that would be that would be my thought. Like, well, no kidding. If it heals, then why are we not constantly healing? Well, I have flexibility around that now. Now, I think that's something that like I personally am still discovering what suits me the best, you know, and I invite people to continue to explore that, you know, kind of like how Yerasimos was talking about, how like, you know, we just sat there and we explored different diets. I think it ultimately will come down to the person, but they must approach it with open eyes to all possibilities, you know. So some people, you know, might have tried, you know, a vegan diet and they feel excellent, you know. Awesome. I'm so glad to hear that you found something that makes you feel excellent. Now there's other ways of also achieving different levels of health. And so I think it's important to look at everything and to experience, okay, I'll be careful with my words, not experience everything, but experience the various ways of healing, the various diets, and see if something actually suits you more. Because like we talked about earlier, we literally don't know something is possible until we feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, and I think what's important too is we had a Tommy John on our podcast, and he said he had a quote. It was called "A happy donut or a sad salad," and it's like even just like your psychological state when you're eating something, you know, like I used to in my early days in this whole health, wellness, personal development world, like I used to play the food police. I was like, you know, I was like bartending in New York while I was doing my thing. And I was like, you can't have that. You can't do that. Why are you drinking that? It's going to fucking kill you, you know? And like, I'm so much more chill now, you know, like I eat real foods, but occasionally I just kind of eat what I want to eat in the moment. And I feel good about it. And I'm not like, oh my God, I shouldn't have eaten that. Oh my God. Like the psychological stress that you put on yourself or like what you feel about yourself when you do the act is worse than if you just like ate the food and we're like, oh my God, I feel amazing. I'm hanging out with my friends and we're laughing, we're dancing, we're playing. You know, I think that plays a role as well too. What do you think about that?
That's huge. That is huge. And me too, by the way. Like there was a time where I brought this up to somebody. I forgot like, you know, when or to who, but I remember thinking, I noticed that every time I would cleanse, like let's say I do like all liquids, or I'm doing, you know, like, you know, raw fruit and vegetable only, you know, something a little more on the rigorous side, I would feel this guilt when it came down to like breaking the fast or breaking the diet. I'm like, well, how could I? Is it that worth it? You know, and I would beat myself up for choosing certain things. And I was like that too. I was the police, you know, with different friends. If they told me or if they were eating something, I couldn't wait. Oh my God.
Let me tell you.
Oh yeah.
Oh, let me tell you. I got a scroll of information that I'm going to share with you. Did you know? Did you know?
I'm like, oh, interesting. So I see you're eating sushi today. Did you know that 1 cubic centimeter of raw fish can have up to 10,000 larva eggs? Huh? You didn't know that. Oh, and I'm like, destroy their fucking experience. I'm saying like we can't be thinking the thoughts that like our food is toxic. You know what I mean? Like we do have to believe that on some level, like our thoughts contribute to how the food ends up manifesting in our bodies. You know, and that obviously, as we know, like that goes for diseases, you know? So of course it travels through our food. Of course our thoughts can impact it. If you eat something thinking, I'm going to get a stomach ache after I eat this, you better bet you're going to get a stomach ache after eating that. Or you eat that thing and you're like, man, that was amazing. Oh, thank God for my body. I love my body. I love its ability to handle foods like this. Like I feel so lucky to have a body that can handle this. And your body handles it. Your body breaks it down, you know? So,
there's so much to be said for the energetics, and like even just like eating intentionally, or even the whole idea of prayer, you know what I mean? Like thinking the source of where, you know what I mean, your nourishment is about to come from before consuming it, I think can have such a profound difference, as opposed to just consuming something unconsciously.
And even on the topic of like, you know, there's always like this, you know, you talk about the divide and conquer strategy. There's always this thing like, I'm a vegan, you're horrible. I'm a meat eater, you're crazy. And it's just like, just from the topic of meat, like where you source your meat from is a huge thing too. You can't lump everything together, in my opinion. But anyways, I don't know. Some people have different thoughts. I don't know where you stand on that.
Well,
but I just,
if I can jump in first. I was vegan for 5 years between 2015 and 2020, from the moment I watched Cowspiracy until 2020. And for the first couple of years, I felt amazing. I was like, I'm never going back. But I was obviously detoxing, right? There's a detoxification process happening. Then slowly, I felt myself deteriorate across that. I felt as though I wasn't as vibrant as I once was. This is my personal experience. But at the same time, I was like, I could never go back to, consuming flesh. I could never do that. I couldn't bring myself to do that. Then early 2020, I decided to just listen to my body. My body was asking for meat for a long time, and I decided to tune into that, and I ate meat. And now I feel much better. I feel much more energetic. I feel much more vibrant. I feel much more grounded. I feel like I can serve my family, serve my community, serve my friendships better, etc., etc. But yeah, just that experiential idea of actually listening to your body and trusting your body as a result. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's super important because, I think it's very easy for us to create dead ends for ourselves, and to come to these places like, oh, got it, I'm only doing this. That was my mentality for so many things. Like, I think I on a personal level, I feel like I will come to a conclusion and I'm like, okay, that's the answer. And I won't leave room for a possibility of, well, maybe that's not the answer.
Yeah.
Could it be? Or maybe that's just the answer for right now.
Yeah.
And I think this has been like that's been like the theme for this year of like this past, like, I guess year is like, there's so much, there's so much that we don't know. And I feel like as we continue to grow, we learn how much more there isn't that we know, and we're staying students, and we're staying curious. That's what keeps us alive,
Yeah.
So, I like, I'm not the guru, I have information and I'm here to share it, and you guys have information and you're here to share it, and all that we are to do individually is to, experience our lives and come to our own answers, come to our own,
become our own guru. We got to become our guru to ourselves. I think that's where the focus needs to be. And you hit the nail on the head. Like, what's right for me now might not be right for me in 5 years. What's right for me in this climate might not be right for me when I spend 6 months on a Greek island. What's right for me, on the East Coast and the Northeast versus Southern California may be differently depending on the season. So there's so many factors to take in. That's why what I love about health is that like when you look at it from a holistic standpoint, there's so many factors that play into it. And yet the idea of just eating real nourishing foods, where it comes from, is so foreign to so many people because they're not educated. They're not trained that way. I mean, think about public school, elementary, cafeterias. Like, I think back to what I was eating back then, and it was like, holy shit. Yeah. There aren't classes to talk about food, I mean, maybe in some more progressive schools. What do you say? Yet. Maybe in some progressive schools or Waldorf schools or, homeschooling, whatever, like, people understand, children get to know about farming, etc. I remember I think I was reading an article, or I can't remember. It was some school in New York, somewhere in New York, where they brought like a real carrot out to the class and they had no clue what it was, because they had just had like, mini carrots or carrots in their Lunchables, or they'd never seen a real carrot before. And so that's kind of like mind blowing to me, but that's the reality for many people, depending on where they live or their education or socioeconomics, etc.
True. So true. Yeah. Like that's part of the reason why I spent a lot of time, educating kids at the beginning. Like when I first started to host lectures and stuff, it would be like adults or seniors or things like that. But then I started to work in a K-8 school, and I knew these kids didn't know, because I was working in the health office, and they would come to me with their stomach aches. They'd come to me with all the other health conditions, and I would just ask them basic questions about what they ate. And they didn't know how to they didn't know what was considered healthy, what was good for them, what wasn't serving them. I don't want to say what was bad for them, but maybe what was serving them in that moment. And I just asked, one of my teachers approached me and asked me, because she knew my background was in nutrition. She was like, do you want to speak to the, my students about, nutrition one day as like a guest speaker? I was like, yes. And so I started with the middle school at the beginning, and I would talk about, how your food creates your body. And it was, I used this very simple example of like, I'd have them look at their hands. I'd say, everybody, like, take a moment, like, look at your hands. And they're like looking at their hands. And I'm like, every single thing that you're looking at, everything that makes up your physical hand was once your food. So and so I would explain this in, a more easier way, but your physical body is simply matter that you've consumed that has internally translated into your cells. So you are literally, like they say, you are what you eat, and maybe they mean that in like a, more, different way of like, if you eat like shit, then you'll, but I really mean it like you actually on a cellular level, on like an atom level, you are what you consume. So then I would ask them, do you think, and they all love Takis, these like chips. I'm like, so do you think Takis builds your hair? And they're like, no. And they started to put the pieces together. And so they're starting to like realize like how food can impact. But, I realized there how important it is for them to know these things. And I guarantee you till this day, some of what we talked about did not leave them. I know that for a fact, because I remember kids would come up to me when they found out I was leaving the school. They're like, Miss Sheela, you taught me that, something about like something health related. I'm like, oh, I did? I don't remember saying that. Like, that would be something I would say though. But like, it stays with them. And like, those are the little seeds that are planted that end up transforming their lives. But imagine we had, education in these classrooms where they now know, how certain foods impact the body. Literally, like TikTok is just like kind of what I taught, but in a more
entertaining digital way.
Yeah.
Do you change outfits like every 3 seconds? Do you turn into a carrot and then you turn into like a turnip and then you turn into like a tomato?
No, but it's really just breaking down like this is a blueberry, and did you know that blueberries can increase circulation to the eyes? And that they've been used, it can reduce histamine release. It can be used for allergies, all these different things. And they're like, what? This is the information that like kids need to know. And then on the other hand, I would talk about more with like the middle school and high school students, like what different chemicals have been linked to. And I would openly talk about, the United States owns these chemicals. And so they're not going to stop it. So it's up to us to look at a label and find these words and then make the choice after that. Once we see something like monosodium glutamate, once we see blue 1, once we see yellow 5, yellow 6, red 40, then we know what this is made out of, and then we can make that choice for ourselves.
And the problem is when you're naive, you just assume that people are going to feed you good things, that the government wants to give you. Why would the government give me products that are not healthy for me, that are not aligned with serving my best interests in terms of health? And then when you become disillusioned, it's like, holy shit, of course I've got to check everything that's going into my body.
It can totally, we can call it naive, but I think honestly, most of us grew up at some point assuming, we the best.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Like we were just kind of like, hey, if they're selling it for me, or if they're calling it food,
that's right.
then I'm able to eat it. Snickers is doing these marketing campaigns. Like, are you hungry? If I was hungry, I would never eat a Snickers, But the fact that people who are like, oh yeah, if you're hungry, like eat a Snickers. Like, isn't that food? I'm like, no, but we gotta we gotta be having these conversations. We gotta be helping each other out, and just decoding the, what's going on.
I remember years ago, this was like my go-to documentary I would share with people was Food Inc. It was like 2007 or something. And I just would always like, you got to watch Food Inc. You got to watch Food Inc. Okay. It's not real food. It's not real food. Okay. Anyways.
Yeah, Food Inc. And then Super Size Me.
Oh yeah.
Where the McDonald's like didn't degrade for like, it's like, it's still going. They still show pictures of like the fries that look the same.
Wow.
It's incredible.
That's the thing. It's not food.
No.
If we were just to know that, or I guess decide that for ourselves, because that's my personal decision, like my personal definition of like what's food and what isn't. That to me is not food. If we were to like make choices based on that, I mean, can you imagine the impact? Can you imagine the healing? Can you imagine, how the world changes, going back to what we were talking about, that domino effect of, of how the whole world changes,
Yeah, I mean, it's, my motto has always been to eat real food, I mean, yeah, we can get all crazy over what exactly, but like just start there, like eat real food. And ideally, like if you know where it's coming from, if you're growing it, and also not just with growing it, like what water are you using? Are you using good water to grow your food? Because that's fueling the plant. So, there's so many levels to this. Like what water are your fruits and vegetables being grown in? It's
the nature of the soil.
And how is that impacting you? I mean, that's like, people go like, oh my God, I can't even go there, which I'm just saying, like, there's so many different levels to do. At the end of the day, eat real food, because even in the vegan community, I don't knock people who are vegan at all, make your choices, but like eat real food, like not fucking Impossible Burgers and Beyond Meat and like fake chicken, but you still call it chicken, and fake bacon, but you still call it bacon. It's like, why are you calling it the thing that you don't even want to eat? Just, that again, that's just my thing, is just eat vegetables.
A lot of processed foods that, and that's a big point, because there's a lot of people who are like, I thought it would be healthier because it's vegan. I'm like, not necessarily, because it's likely filled with gums, and other thickeners, flavoring agents,
vegetable oils, like canola oil, like, you know what I'm saying?
Oh God, like processed junk, and like, I'll never forget, there was a time that, my friend wanted to make me, I wasn't eating, I don't really eat dairy, that rarely, honestly. But he was gonna make me a pizza. And so we did the cauliflower crust and then all these things. And then he gets this Daya.
Oh yeah, the fake cheese.
Oh my God. So it's melting. And I remember watching it melt. I'm like, and then we cut it, and I was trying to pick up a slice. Dude, it did not stop. It was all connected. And I'm like, regular cheese doesn't even do this. And then I was eating it, and I was like, oh no, I could feel this is like glue. It felt like that in my mouth. It was sticking to all of my teeth. So then I was trying to tell him this. I'm like, yo, if this cheese is sticking to my teeth, that fall off of, this is going to fuck up my intestines. It's literally what I was thinking. I was like, I can't eat this. This isn't, we would be both better off having real dairy than what this is.
I agree.
And that goes for so many different things. And it's that's why we have to read ingredients. That's why, like you said, we got to find these whole, real foods.
Yeah.
If you can envision what the ingredient looks like in the grocery store, in the produce aisle, or whatever that is, then you're on the right track.
Yeah.
You cannot even imagine what the hell it is, or look at, you don't know what it looks like.
You said something which was interesting, because it's vegan, so it's got to be healthy. It's the same thing with organic. You go into the frozen food section. It's well, I got this. It's organic, and it's well, there's 1,800 ingredients in it. Yeah, it's organic, but doesn't mean it's the ideal thing for you to eat. It's better, probably better than the shitty grocery store freezer section version. But again, it's just because a thing says it's what it is, you have to go deeper. Like you said, read the ingredients, know what it looks like. I mean, I personally don't like to, I have my snacks, but I don't like to eat things that come in packages personally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like ice cream.
I have ice cream once in a while. I didn't for 8 years. And then I like started again recently, and I fucking love it. I have it like once in a blue moon. I'm like, oh, I fucking feel great. Like, I mean, I've chilled. You know, I was so hardcore for such a long time, and I've just chilled out a little bit, and it's like I just feel so much better and happier and lighter and just, you know what I mean? So
bro.
again, what'd you say?
Pistachio.
Oh yeah, dude, the pistachio is pretty good. But anyways, you know, again, it's like, do I eat it every single day all the time? No, but like once in a blue moon, like, you know, life, you want to enjoy life to some degree. That being said, I've been in this world for a long time. Like maybe when you're starting out, like, and you've been eating shitty your whole life, like turn your way into it, like slowly get into it and see. But
yeah, even what I'm noticing now, because when I went vegan, like obviously we cut out dairy as well whatsoever, but even now in all the oat milks and the almond milks, they're all full of seed oils, right? Yeah. And they're all like manufactured in these massive silos. It's like, okay, maybe not kind of thing.
Make your own nut milk.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly. Again. What'd you say?
Sorry? I said, go get an almond cow. You know those things?
An almond cow.
Like nut milks out of them.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the nature of parasites, a basic rundown, how they enter our system, how they wreak havoc, and why this is such an important conversation.
Okay. So first, it's an important conversation because I think United States is like the only country that doesn't regularly cleanse from parasites. You know, like so many other countries around the world, like it's just in their nature. Like they know how to detect them, and then they know when it's time to cleanse and how to cleanse, and that's just part of their routine. We just don't do that.
How do you detect them?
You know, how we can get parasites. What'd you say?
Sorry, I said how do you detect them? Yeah, your volume just went a little bit quiet. That's all right.
Oh, okay. I'll enunciate or I'll get a little.
That's all right.
Well, I'll tell you in just a second. First, I'll tell you how you can get them. So,
okay.
First, many ways, and on a very simple way, which is why it's so common, and it's not too much to freak out over, because you can literally get it like from flushing a public toilet, you know, or having a dog at home, right? Being around like small children that end up touching a bunch of things and touching their face and then touching this and touching you and all that stuff. Like it happens. It's everywhere. Even if we're gardening with our bare hands, you know, they're in soil, you know, without washing produce, you can get that way. If you're, even though I think grounding is excellent and I love it, even having your bare foot on soil, you know, they can go through your skin and your heel and lodge themselves there too. So there's so many ways. And I think that the biggest way is from food, which of all foods would be like raw fish or raw meat. So sushi is a big one, big one, which is why it's like, you know, I think it's important for people to know. And so if you were an avid sushi eater, or if you're an avid like poke eater, or if you love the carpaccio and the tuna tartars and things like that, then okay, that's your first, you know, maybe it would be a good idea to cleanse from parasites. Because what ends up happening is, you know, the symptoms can typically go undetected for a really long time. And they've become these things that I think people are just so comfortable with that they don't think that they're actually like abnormal. So for instance, grinding your teeth at night is not a normal thing. But because so many people experience grinding their teeth at night, they're like, oh yeah, I grind my teeth. You grind your teeth. And it's just like, it's not anything that we like think that there's that we have to do anything about. But grinding your teeth at night, to me, after all the research, I mean, 100% linked to parasitic infection. That's how I feel about it. Now, is that the ultimate truth? No, but that's how when I hear someone tell me that, I'm like, parasite cleansing. Because parasites in mammals, this happens for humans, cows, you know, different types of animals, they will lay their eggs in the jaw muscle. Why the jaw muscle? I have no idea, but they do. And so at nighttime, they're more active. And so they'll cause you this stress, which will make you grind your teeth at night. And so teeth grinding is a big one. Another big one is having allergies. Usually it's more seasonal allergies and not just food allergies. So like those people who are like, I get allergies every year and they're so bad and I don't know what to do about it. Like, the first thing I would say is like, first cleanse from parasites, then change your diet. Because once you cleanse from parasites, it might just be parasites because they release, their waste is a neurotoxin, and their waste also contributes to our immune system being depleted and overreacting because we're constantly being exposed to something that we have to react towards. And so your allergies is another one. Other things is like anxiety, like literally which again, something that is so simple that people are like, oh man, I have anxiety, and it's like, we all deal with it, or, you know what I mean? It's something that's so common, but really if you're experiencing it and you're like, there's nothing to really put my finger on, everything is fine, then, or maybe that's the added thing on top of things like, you're grinding your teeth at night and you also have allergies and things like that, or, or maybe, there's other signs. Like have you ever had like a shot of wheatgrass?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
Years
like
ago.
Jamba Juice or things like that. Okay. So if you have like fresh wheatgrass on an empty stomach and you feel nauseated, that's a sign. If you have fresh pomegranate juice on an empty stomach and you feel like you need to vomit after, which that happens for a lot of people, like they feel nauseated, parasites. If you feel like you have fresh grape juice, I would say maybe red grape juice, because I haven't experienced that with green, but like fresh grape juice, and you feel repulsed by it, I would say it's another sign of parasitic infection. And then there's other things like, abdominal, cramping, pain, gas, bloating, things like that. So those are the common symptoms. Why do we cleanse? Because of the first thing, their poop is a neurotoxin. It damages our nervous tissue. It affects our nervous system, which is at the end of the day, our lifeline. Because when do we really start to see ourselves completely deplete? When our nervous system starts to shut down on us. And another thing is they eat our tissue. That's how they move around. So they'll usually start in our colons if we ate something, and they'll literally gnaw their way through your colon, and they go looking for organs that are weak, aka organs that retain the most amount of waste. Why? Because parasites, or even worms specifically, are the decomposers of our earth. So in gardening, we have earthworms, and they eat the dead or the decaying, plant matter. In our bodies, or in animals, or fish, whatnot, they latch on to the weak, or they find the organs that are the most weak in that animal to then feed off of. And so if we have something going on in our lungs, if we have something going on in our liver, if we have something going on in our kidneys, if we have something going on in our brains, maybe we lack circulation to our brain, which is quite common, then they will start to consume that tissue to further damage it, further break it down. And the unfortunate part is when they start to consume nervous tissue. And now they're seeing that a lot of people with multiple sclerosis are being highly linked to parasitic infection. And so how does that make sense? Well, they love to eat nervous tissue, high in protein, and we start to see lesions happen. And for most people, it happens in the lower spine, which is closest to which organs? Your digestive organs, your colon, which is, so you imagine that the parasites leave the colon, or there's a high concentration of them there, they leave, and then they find the spinal cord, so there's lots of reasons. And then obviously alleviating yourself from any kind of symptoms that you had prior, there's many reasons to cleanse, but it's like, some people will say,
how can you know that?
What are you gonna say? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, some people will be like, you can live with parasites, and of course you can, they're not just going to kill you the second that they enter you. I mean, shit, some might, some are dangerous, but I think, go ahead.
Well, I'm just curious. I don't know if this is related, but it popped in my head. I'm just curious your point of view on this. If you have one, what are your view on colonics?
Good question.
Like regarding
I'm such a fan of colonics. Highly recommend them.
Okay. I've heard so many different points of view from different people, and I just wanted to know yours.
We're here
for the truth. So being here for the truth is about being able to take in lots of different information from different people and, dancing with it, and that's the thing. I think the issue that I have in general in the health field, but pretty much anywhere, is like people who can't take in information from a person and just acknowledge it and go, okay, that's interesting. And it's like, no, I'm right, you're wrong, go fuck yourself. So anyways, I was just curious. And trust me, I've been there and I still am sometimes.
I've been there.
You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, you wear a mask, go fuck yourself. But okay, I must have compassion. Must have compassion. Must have compassion. Go fuck yourself. Must have compassion. Must have compassion.
Compassion.
You know what I mean? Like, this is being human. Like, I don't pretend like I'm this like all perfect zened out person all the time, because life is juicy. Anyways,
right, I'll tell you this. Last time I got a colonic, I was telling the practitioners to go fuck themselves.
I've had like probably 7 or 8 in my life, but never like crazy amounts in a row. Like, my wife did them for a while back in the days. Anyways, I was, just curious your thoughts, because for some reason association, I was like parasites, colonics. What's your thoughts?
100%. I mean, listen, like we have I'm sure each of you might have like learned this at some point. Like we have pounds of fecal matter in our colons, pounds. And the reason why colon cancer is so prevalent is because that waste that sticks to the sides of the walls of the colon, that mucoid plaque, or the accumulation of fecal matter, it starts to actually deteriorate the walls of the colon. And sure, first it can create that little bulge where we see diverticulitis occur, but even past that point, that's when you start to, when your cells are constantly in the state of like acid or toxic waste, if they're constantly in that environment, it doesn't matter what tissue you have. That's the beginning of cancer. That's when the cells start to mutate. That's when you start to see these things start to happen. So like, it's so important to cleanse the body. And so I could be sitting here, be talking about the lymphatic system and how important it is to cleanse the lymphatic system. You can talk about cleansing from parasites, but also, cleansing the colon. Cause like, it's like, to me, I'm like, you just lay on a bed, someone will do it for you. Like, it's like almost like the easiest thing that you could do to literally start to move your waste. And once your colon is being cleansed, because I wouldn't say it's always clean. That doesn't happen. You're always having waste that you're always bringing in, because your cells also poop. Your cells poop too. So there's always waste to be moved. But once you bring out waste and you open up the capacity of your colon, then what happens is the rest of your body feels like, we can release now. Yeah. There's room. Everything is like, it's almost like an assembly line of movement. So when
move that poop, you got to create like a hip hop song, bro. Like move that poop.
Look, I agree with everything Sheela said, except let's be honest, it's not just laying on a bed, and it's not just that easy. All right.
I fuck with my practitioners. I was like, oh, you're gonna stick a tube in my butt? Like I'm totally the dude that's like talking to my practitioner while they have they stick the tube in my butt and they're massaging my belly. I'm that kind of guy.
Bro.
I'm like, okay, deep breath. Okay. Relax.
I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm Greek. I don't know.
Oh. That makes sense.
Oh, man.
Sheela, let me ask you this. Detoxing during pregnancy for pregnant women, because there's so much conversation about it, so much taboo. Can it be done at all? Is there any recommendation, any guideline, or just wait until you're fully done breastfeeding altogether before you can even begin that journey?
I lean on fully done breastfeeding. I'm sure there's ways to go about it, but like, remember, like when you don't want to put your body in the state of elimination when you're trying to grow another baby. You don't want your body to be in elimination mode when what you're eliminating is also feeding your baby.
Yeah.
So I don't believe in doing detoxification when you're pregnant for that reason. Pregnancy is about building, It's not the time to cleanse and release.
Yeah.
And when you're breastfeeding, you gotta remember, like your breast milk, your waste will go through your breast milk.
Yeah.
What you ingest will go through your breast milk. The remnants from your deodorant will go through your breast milk. Your makeup, your lotion, things that you put on your body that you consume and then is then released by the body, your breast milk is now a new pathway of release. So I don't believe in cleansing even when breastfeeding, because I'm like, you don't want to put that into your baby. You know, that's the gem. That's the next generation. That's our future.
Yeah.
I remember someone
clarifying.
I remember someone was telling, I think it was my sister-in-law, like not to use an infrared sauna while she was breastfeeding. So I don't know if that relates to it at all.
I never thought about that.
There's a detoxification process. You're sweating. I don't know. Maybe you're releasing some heavy metals. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe.
Who knows?
That could be a good point, but
that's what they say,
That's what they say. Hey, while we're here, let me bring this up. So you're a conventional Libra, right?
I'm such a Libra.
Conventional. In Western tropical astrology, you're a Libra, but not in my system. Your true sun, the sun wasn't in Libra, it was in Scorpio.
Really? Okay. I've heard this.
Death. This is purgation, detoxification, purifying, cleansing. This is the seventh house, which denotes your destiny. So
you were meant to support people with death, the dying of things and exiting their bodies.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I did not realize that. So wait, so Scorpio is related to death?
Well, Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, and Pluto is all about purgation, purifying, detoxifying, cleansing. And that's, but the original archetype is the tarot. It's these images, right? This image denotes Scorpio, and it also denotes, I guess, what we now call, what Pluto symbolizes. But this card it's catharsis. It's literally purgation. It's the deepest cleansing, the deepest detoxification possible. It's the removal and shedding of everything that's false.
That is fascinating. Yeah. That is so fascinating.
Yeah. You're in alignment, dude.
I'm sitting here like, wow, my whole life.
All right.
Interesting.
I'm going to shift gears a little bit, okay?
Okay.
You've got 500,000 TikTok followers, okay? With what's happening in the world, is that coming up in the conversation there, or is that something, because I know we share some similar views. I'm not saying you have to. I'm just curious, like, how do you dance with that?
So I've alluded to what my thoughts are on it on like TikTok lives, because on TikTok you can also do TikTok live, where people have like asked, and I'm kind of just like, I give them the face and the words that maybe like allude to what my stance on all this was at the time.
Can you show us the face?
Okay, so let's role play this. Let's role play. Sheela, or wait, maybe they don't call you Sheela. They call you food over drugs. Food over drugs. So like, what should I wear masks, or like, should I get the vaccine?
You would hear around the vaccine. They'd be like, hey, so like, what do you think about the vaccine? And I'm like, that's it. Like, intuitive. You must know. Like, look at what I'm educating you about. Like, you can put the pieces together. But I guess it's really not that obvious, because there's so many people that, like, I don't know if you guys have noticed this. It's like, man, there's so many people in this past year that you're like, man, you too, like people who like we maybe respected, maybe in a health way, or like things like that like, it's not that common for us to be like, oh shit. And then like that other person that like you never thought ever cared about health or whatever was like, hell no,
like, fuck that vaccine.
Yeah, you're just like,
fuck
what?
the government. I ain't listening.
No, but on TikTok though, so there was like, the last video that I posted was of red clover, and I decided to just like experiment with TikTok and my language, where I put that red clover prior to the whooping cough vaccine was used for whooping cough, And
I remember you telling me about this.
Yeah, and I took it a step further, and I was like, why don't I just hashtag vaccine for the hell of it,
Yeah.
And the second I did the hashtag, they had the warning. And like, I'm used to a certain amount of views now, because, I release a video, and within like, 1 hour, I see a certain amount of views. Within 2 hours, I see a certain amount of views. So I post this video, and I'm waiting, and it's like an hour, and I'm like, only like, it was like 23 views. It was abnormal compared to, you know, the 500,000 to the 2 million views that I get on all the other videos. And so I was like, something's up. So first I took the video down, because you're not allowed to edit captions on TikTok. So you have to delete the whole video.
Okay.
Upload it. So I re-uploaded it again. And I didn't put the hashtag, but I still, with my voice, said that, you know, red clover was used for vaccines. And still I had a warning on my video. Yeah. And luckily it was still a lull at the beginning, but I was just like, that sucks. You know, I kind of talked about it on my Instagram for a little bit, but then eventually it picked back up. So gotcha. I don't know. I mean, I guess.
Yeah, it picks up the audio. I just posted a video this morning and I used the word vaxxed and it got flagged like immediately just for the audio. So it's fucking crazy.
I don't think TikTok was doing that.
I was curious.
I thought it was just, you know, an Instagram and Facebook thing, because TikTok's owned by them, you know, the lords of.
You know, it's really interesting because I know other people that have large followings, and now again, their following is based on what they do. And so it's interesting to talk to, like, what people choose to talk about or not talk about. And I personally don't have a judgment over what, if people are going to, like, you know, like go outside of their lane per se and start a little conversation. But I don't know. I'm just curious how that conversation's going on TikTok, and I don't know. And also, what are your views in general with what's happening in the world?
I have a lot of thoughts about what's happening in the world, but I think as we've seen with how platforms, how we can be deplatformed, essentially, I guess I'll say that. When I think about how I speak about a certain thing, I know that what I have with TikTok is very special. Like, it's very special. I have the attention of 500,000 people. And when I have the attention of these people and they are already curious about how food heals the body, I take responsibility for that. And I'm not going to make reckless decisions. I'm not saying it's reckless, but I'm just saying, just for the sake of knowing what.
It's a business decision. It's a wise business decision.
Business, but also, like, I got to put myself in the position that if I were to just pull the trigger, which I can at any moment, you know, and just be like, yo, I could do it in different ways, you know, but, you know, if I were to pull the trigger and really just speak about what I'm seeing happening right now and what my thoughts are, it's like I could risk having access to continue to speak to these people.
That's the thing. And that's my thing as well. How are we best of service? How are we best of continuing that service, right? There's no point being reckless and doing exactly what we know is going to give us no traction or give us no ears to listen to. You got to play the game the right way. So yeah, no, I agree with you.
And you've been having an impact on all these people for however long. Like, keep having that impact.
Yeah.
Because when somebody first makes the connection of, like, oh, wait a minute, like, I can use you know, let's just say I could use, like, turmeric for Alzheimer's disease, and then they actually experiment with it, and then they notice that, like, certain things are improving or whatnot, or they use different, like, plants to heal themselves. You know, just like when I was telling you, like, how the seed was planted for me, that's the beginning for them. So I'm planting, like, hundreds, if not thousands of seeds right now, or maybe like, you know, hundreds of thousands, you know, into, you know, people to start to look at food differently and start to maybe look at maybe medicine differently, where, maybe, you know, you didn't think that there was a cure for X condition, but did you know that it has been traditionally used for this? Not saying it's the answer, just putting it out there, you know, if you ever want to explore that. And I think that's what that at the end of the day is going to get people to start to think for themselves. And then maybe we don't necessarily have to say
they'll make the decision for themselves.
Everything touches everything.
And they're like, hey, you know what?
I think it's awesome.
Way. Exactly.
All right, well, you're not on TikTok now, so let loose, girl.
What'd you say? Oh, well, so okay. I think we share similar views on, like, okay, I'll tell you this. First, when I first started to hear about mRNA, okay, I was like, mRNA vaccine. I didn't need anybody to tell me this. My immediate thought was, this is going to impact DNA, and this is going to impact things like our immune system. It's going to mess up our immune system. It's going to cause, our bodies to basically work against us, is what my first thought was. I even had the thought, because I know there's a herb called, well, let me finish my sentence. I even had an idea that it might affect fertility. That was my first thought. I'm like, it's going to exacerbate, autoimmune disorders and cause them, and then also cause infertility. That was my first. I didn't say it out loud. I spoke it to like my friends as like my hypothesis. I just didn't I didn't say anything. And part of that came from was like, there's a herb called cat's claw that is a very powerful herb. It's a bark, and it's an antiviral, but it also has been used as a contraceptive. Why? Because it teaches, or it retrains the body to attack and eliminate any cell that is considered abnormal, period. So what does that mean? Our ovum, our fertilized egg, like our young baby, it's now an abnormal cell. So what does cat's claw make our bodies do? Will destroy it and then eliminate it. And so that goes for anything else. So now thinking of like the immune system and how we are training the immune system to attack a quote, quote, very specific thing. How do we know that it would only target that very specific thing when we know that by nature mutates? Nature mutates. So our bodies mutate. We can have a different reaction that can cause our bodies to have a different effect. So, and from the beginning, when I was learning that it was an mRNA vaccine, we didn't have to, like, nobody had opinions that we weren't talking about it yet. I just was in my friend's ears and my mom's ear. And I'm like, whatever you do, do not get the vaccine. That's all I would say. Because I was like, I don't care who tells me what. To me, that's not safe. I don't even care if they do a 20-year study. Still, it's not safe to me.
Yeah.
So that's all that I need to know. And so now that obviously it's out there, my thoughts started to trickle like last year when they were like really talking about the vaccine. Oh, can't wait for you to have the vaccine. I'm like, oh God, they're going to make this they're going to make it mandated. They're going to like make us everybody get it. Like, and then this is going to happen. I think a lot of us actually like started to brainstorm the possibilities of like what's to come once this, this rolls out. But I was like, no, there's no way. And of course, like we're literally witnessing that they will literally kick you out of society if you don't inject yourself with something. And the manipulation and the force that's happening, the very subtle force that's happening is for some people, that's what it is for them to start to think, which thank God that's happening.
Yeah.
Honestly, because that's what's waking a lot of people up. Do you guys know Lori Ladd?
Mm-hmm. I haven't like listened to a lot of her stuff, but I know who she is.
Yeah. So she made this video maybe I guess about a week ago. I don't remember how long ago it was, but she was talking about how all this stuff is going on and it's going to get crazier, and it has to. She's like, it has to become ridiculous. It has to become so abnormal for the person to finally be like, what the fuck is going on? How is this happening? And then start to wake up.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, but it will. Like,
yeah.
I genuinely
it's happening.
It's happening. Yeah. I agree with that sentiment. Definitely.
It has to happen. It has and it will. It's almost like if we're talking about the law, like I'm not talking about the governing law, but I'm saying the universal law. Like this is the direction that like they're going to get crazier, on us. And then the chaos is going to continue to get bigger. And then the people will naturally start to awaken. And that's just to me, I know that that's where we're going. So I know that that's what's going to happen. It's just that we have to brace ourselves and maneuver through the world and continue to do what we do and continue to stand on our truth and continue to speak and continue to move and shake and just be ourselves, so that when they wake up, we're here and we're ready with open arms. Let's keep going. There's more to go. There's more to go. Like join the army. Like we're here. And eventually this will only end when the whole world has come together, or at least the majority or some level of the world has come over where we can actually overthrow together. I think that's where we're headed, where we're going to have to get to such a point where the whole world comes together. Yeah. And that's beautiful. Is that actually
exciting? Yeah. Yeah. It's like as the chaos gets more hectic, it's equivalent. So people that are asleep, waking up, right? And it has to get to that boiling point for the people that are most numbed out and most unaware of what's going on to actually become activated on some level. All right. Final question. Cannabis, food or drug?
Could be food. Could be food.
100% food.
I think, could be food?
Yeah, could be. I say could be because there's people who could abuse it. And also, I think it's also been manipulated a lot over the years. And now that it's been legalized in so many states, like corporations have taken over and they're like, well, let me do it. Like, let me manipulate this strain this way. And, I think like
GMO weed.
That's what yeah. I mean, the thing is luckily it's already a weed. Mm-hmm. But luckily it grows very freaking easily, I mean, sure, everyone will have their grow lights and their this and their that, but they a lot of times they do it because they want that specific strain to show different compounds and, make it grow a certain type of way. So they have a certain type of, effect, but it definitely can be medicinal. Mm-hmm. It definitely can be food, but again, I see people who abuse things like that too. So I'm like, it could be, but that's why it goes for even my medicine here. The reason why these work, the reason why this is medicine is because it has the power to shift the body. And if there's something that has the power to shift the body, then you must know that there is a limit, or you should create limitations on it. You shouldn't overdo it, because then eventually you shift your body into another way or you overload it essentially, and you're going to cause other disorders. So it's we use it as medicine. If we use it as medicine, then absolutely. But if we're using it as wake and bake every day, all day, I'm I don't know if that's going to be healing your body. I don't think that's going to be serving your nervous system.
Can you do that impersonation again, please?
Rewind.
I love it. You're amazing. Thank you so much for being here, for joining us for this conversation. I love your energy. I love the way that you broach these subjects, the way that you do, and the way that you project your unique individual essence onto everything. Just thank you, really.
Yeah, I agree. I really just love your energy. There's just such a passion and depth behind what you say. And, just hearing you on this podcast, I totally understand how you have 500,000 TikTok followers.
You're obsessed, bro.
Well, I think it's funny too, I don't know. I just love bringing out, and I also love championing people for what they do. I mean, that's impressive. You have 500,000 people that are being educated on the power of food over drugs.
Yeah.
That's I've studied health, wellness, all the shit I've gone down, all these rabbit holes. I've talked to people for years. I share my opinions. I mean, our podcast will have 500,000 subscribers at some point, but it doesn't. And so I'm honoring you and respecting you for what it took to do that. So yeah, I make a joke about it, but it's also like, that's fucking cool that we live in a world where obviously technology, I have like a love, go fuck yourself relationship with technology. And, you know, you've used the tool to really inspire people. And I don't know the demographics. I don't know if you can figure out the demographics of your audience, but I'm sure they range from all different ages. And let's just say a good percentage of your demographics are like younger people too. Like, it's incredible that, because they're not getting this education in high school, in public school. You know, some of their fucking parents don't even know this shit.
Most.
You know what I mean? Yeah, most. And it's just trying to be kind. You know, they don't know this shit. And so it's like the role that you have, like, I don't want to like discount that. Like, I want to like put that up there. Like, that's incredible. And that's amazing. And that's awesome.
Thank you for acknowledging that. Thank you for saying that and speaking that out loud. That is very true. That is literally something that, like, you know, I actually practice reminding myself, you know, because it's like, I can look at it as like followers, or I can look at it as like, no. I have the ears. I have the ears of these people. So like, what am I committed to? You know,
yeah.
It's a responsibility. I'm like, no, we're saying true to what the mission is, you know, over and over and over and over. And it's like, man, like how you were saying earlier, I'm like, where else and what other time or capacity do we see, like, you know, 500,000 people are interested in you know, how to heal the body through food, you know? And so thank you for saying that.
Yeah, if you had 500,000 TikTok followers and you were just changing outfits all day, I probably wouldn't say that, you know, but yeah, it's just, I think it's pretty cool. Like, and what's cool about that is that there's that many. Yeah. I mean, maybe you do at times because it's part of it, but you know what I mean? Like, that's not the focus. Like, your page isn't called like, you know, whatever, dresses and shoes, you know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. And the fact that there's 500,000 people that are interested in that, like, that's cool. Like, would that have happened 25 years ago? You know what I mean? So it just goes to show you where, like, the needle is going.
Yeah, but and also, like, I mean, the power of technology when used correctly, man, and when used intentionally, you mean, it's incredible. And there's good and bad to all of it. You know what I mean? And we can use and wield anything to our advantage depending on how we choose to use it and choose to work with it. Yeah, totally. All right, Sheela, what do you want to shout out? What do you want to tell us? What do you want to speak to our audience this moment in time?
Final words.
But also, like, plugging anything into plug, website, all the rest of it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm sure this will be attached to whatever video that you guys make, but you know, the formulas, like the parasite formula that we talked about, it's on foodoverdrugs.com. Anything else that I create, like my essentially medicine from plants, is all on foodoverdrugs.com. And of course, Food Over Drugs is the name, so it's on Instagram and TikTok and, you know, everything. So final words, I want to say something that just occurred to me, not occurred to me, but it was something that had been on my mind. You know, I think I spoke into a little bit when I was talking about, like, I was referencing Lori Ladd. It's like, you know, things are probably going to get worse, you know, in the next year or so. You know, we're going to start to see more things unfold, but we have to be willing to stick together. We have to be willing to, you know, come from a place of compassion. We have to be ready and willing to receive people with open arms. And that means people who thought one way for a long time and finally start to see a new perspective. And it's not about us against you, because that is the biggest thing right now that's happening in both of our worlds, you know, in the realm of, like, the truth seekers and the activists for medical freedom. And then on the other hand, you know, we're seeing that. So we got to stay true to that. And so anyone who's watching this, I just want to remind them that, like, compassion is going to be the only thing that, like, that supports us in this world, in this lifetime. And I think that if we remember that, along with the fact that we're all happen to be alive in this time, you know, so there's a purpose to us being here, then hold that with you and keep moving, because we have a long journey ahead, but we're in, and we have each other. So
wow,
it's
such a potent and such a mature message as well. I mean, people listening might not realize, but you're 29 years old, right?
Yes.
Is that right? It's absolutely incredible.
How'd you know?
You're telling me you started this journey in like 7-8 years ago. You mean, so you're going through this when you were 21, 22 years old, starting to
didn't you 15? Did you say you started this 15, 16?
15, the seed was planted, and then I actually started to study it when I was like in the 2012 or something.
Wow.
No, it's incredible. I mean, you're not here by any accident, and I'm sure you know that. So
my cards say.
That's right. Guys, thank you for listening to another amazing episode of Here for the Truth with our special guest today, Sheela. Go check her out. Food Over Drugs on all platforms. I'm going to be doing one of these parasite cleanses for sure. I'll be jumping on that as soon as this podcast ends. I'm curious. And yeah, we'll catch you guys next time.
Thanks. Much love.
Peace.
Smoking mirrors, I'm seeing through the illusion. Waking up in a time they think you're in a delusion. Somebody set the alarms, cause they be too busy snoozing. I'm in a DeLorean.